Picture this. A cozy little cafe tucked in the heart of a busy town. Fairy lights dangle like tiny stars above wooden tables. The air smells of fresh coffee and warm croissants. The chatter of customers hums like a melody. It's the kind of place where strangers become friends over a shared latte. Every cup holds a story. But tonight, this ordinary cafe is about to witness something extraordinary. The clock ticks past 7 p.m. The place is packed, students tapping away on laptops, couples laughing over dessert, a businessman in a sharp suit sipping his espresso alone. Suddenly, a sharp, choking gasp cuts through the noise. Heads whip around, cups freeze mid-air. The businessman, Raymond Carter, a man whose name is plastered on skyscrapers and charity galas, clutches his throat, his face pale, and collapses to the hardwood floor. The cafe goes silent. Spoons clatter. Eyes widen in shock. People stare, frozen, unsure, afraid. Nobody moves. Nobody knows what to do, except for one person. A young barista, Aisha, barely 20, her apron dusted with flour, her hands trembling, drops her tray of mugs with a crash and sprints toward him. In that single heart-stopping moment, her life, and the lives of everyone watching, changes forever. If you believe in the power of ordinary people stepping up in extraordinary moments, if you love stories of courage, kindness, and second chances, please take a second to hit that like button. Share this with someone who needs a spark of hope. Drop your thoughts in the comments, and stick around for a story that'll stay with you long after the screen goes dark. This is Moral Echo Tales, and this is Aisha's story. Aisha wasn't supposed to be working that night. She was a college student, juggling exams, part-time shifts, and a family that leaned on her more than she could sometimes carry. Her dad had been in and out of hospitals for years, each visit leaving behind a stack of bills that seemed to grow taller by the day. Her little sister Maya was only 10, with big dreams of becoming an artist but no money for supplies. Aisha's mom worked double shifts at a diner, but it was never enough. So Aisha begged her boss for extra hours at the cafe, even if it meant missing sleep, skipping meals, or smiling through exhaustion. The cafe was a different world. It was where the town's elite came to unwind, lawyers, CEOs, people who tossed around money like confetti. To Aisha, it was like stepping into a movie. The customers barely noticed her as she refilled their cups or cleared their plates. She was invisible, just another face behind the counter, her dark eyes scanning the room, her braids swinging as she moved. But Aisha noticed everything. She saw the way Raymond Carter sat alone that night, his shoulders tense, his fingers twitching as he stirred his coffee. She saw the flicker of pain in his eyes when he thought no one was looking. When Raymond collapsed, the cafe turned into a scene from a nightmare. His body hit the floor with a thud that echoed in Aisha's chest. The crowd, people who ran companies, signed million-dollar deals, and lived in mansions, stood paralyzed. Someone pulled out a phone to record. Another whispered, "Is he dead?" A few backed away, as if death might be contagious. But Aisha didn't hesitate. Her sneakers squeaked as she slid to her knees beside him, her heart pounding so loud she could barely think. She had no medical degree, no fancy training, just a CPR class she'd taken at a community center 2 summers ago, back when she thought it might look good on a resume. Now those lessons were all she had. "Stay with me, sir," she whispered, her voice shaking as she pressed her palms against his chest. She counted in her head. 1, 2, 3, push. Her arms burning, her braids sticking to her sweaty neck. The cafe blurred around her. She ignored the gasps, the murmurs, the clinking of a dropped fork. She ignored the fear screaming in her mind that she might fail, that she might not be enough. All she saw was a man slipping away, and all she could do was fight to bring him back. The seconds dragged like hours. Aisha's arms ached. Her breaths came in short, sharp gasps. She tilted Raymond's head back, gave 2 rescue breaths, then pressed again. "Come on," she pleaded, her voice cracking. A woman in a red dress turned away, unable to watch. A man in a suit muttered, "It's too late." But Aisha didn't listen. She thought of her dad, how he'd fought through every hospital stay, how he'd held her hand and told her to keep going no matter what. She thought of Maya, sketching in their tiny apartment, her pencil scratching out dreams Aisha swore she'd protect. She thought of what it meant to fight, even when the world expects you to fail. And then, it happened. A faint, ragged cough. A twitch of Raymond's fingers. His chest rose, shaky but real. Aisha's eyes widened, her heart leaping as relief crashed over her like a wave. She kept going, pressing steady and sure, until the paramedics burst through the cafe door, their boots loud against the floor. They pushed through the crowd, their equipment clanging, and took over with swift, practiced moves. One of them, a woman with kind eyes, grabbed Aisha's arm. "You saved his life," she said. "Without you, he wouldn't have made it." The crowd broke into applause, not the loud, showy kind you hear at concerts, but a soft, almost stunned clap, like they were waking from a dream. Aisha stood, her hands shaking, her apron stained with coffee and sweat. She wasn't a hero, she told herself. She just did what anyone would do. But deep down, she knew that wasn't true. Not everyone would have run toward a stranger in need. Not everyone would have risked failing in front of a room full of strangers. By the next morning, Aisha's name was everywhere. Local barista saves tycoon in Café crisis. Her phone buzzed with notifications, news alerts, texts from friends, even a message from her old high school teacher. She ignored it all, tying her apron for another shift at the cafe. She didn't want fame. She just wanted to keep her family afloat. But the world had other plans. 3 days later, the cafe door chimed and the room went quiet. Raymond Carter walked in, pale, leaning on a cane, but alive. Customers froze, their forks hovering, their conversations cut short. He didn't look like the untouchable businessman anymore. He looked human, fragile, grateful. He walked straight to Aisha, who was wiping down the counter, her cheeks burning as every eye in the room followed. "Aisha," he said, his voice low but steady, "you didn't just save my life. You reminded me what life is for." The cafe was so quiet, you could hear the hum of the espresso machine. Raymond told her his story, not the headlines, not the skyscrapers, but the truth. He'd spent years chasing wealth, building an empire, but somewhere along the way, he'd forgotten the people who make life matter, the baristas who poured his coffee, the dreamers who kept the world spinning. Aisha, with her trembling hands and fearless heart, had brought him back, not just to life, but to himself. Raymond didn't stop at words. He sat down with Aisha's family that week, in their tiny apartment with its flickering bulb and cracked walls. He paid off her dad's medical bills, every last cent. He set up a scholarship for Aisha to finish her degree, no strings attached. For Maya, he funded an art program, complete with supplies and classes to nurture her talent. Aisha tried to say no, feeling like it was too much, too sudden. But Raymond shook his head. "You gave me a second chance," he said. "Let me give you one." Aisha's story spread far beyond the town. It wasn't just about saving a billionaire. It was about courage, the kind that doesn't wear a suit or a crown but an apron and a tired smile. People shared her story because they saw themselves in her, the workers, the students, the ones who fight every day without a spotlight. Aisha didn't just save one life. She reminded thousands that bravery doesn't need permission, it just needs a heart willing to act. Months later, Aisha stood at a community event, not as a barista, but as a guest of honor. Her dad was there, healthier than he'd been in years, his smile wide. Maya held a sketchbook, her eyes bright with possibility. Aisha wore a simple dress, borrowed from a friend, but she carried herself like someone who'd learned her own strength. The crowd wasn't just wealthy elites or big names. It was neighbors, teachers, dreamers, people like her, who knew what it meant to keep going. When Aisha looked out at them, she didn't see just a room full of faces. She saw stories, struggles, hopes. She saw what she'd learned that night in the cafe, that life is fragile, but courage is unstoppable. One moment, one choice, can change everything, not just for one person, but for everyone who hears the story. If Aisha's story touched your heart, if it reminded you of the power of kindness, courage, and second chances, please hit that like button. Share this video with someone who needs a lift, and drop a comment telling us what moved you. Most importantly, subscribe to Moral Echo Tales and join us for more stories that remind us what it means to be human. Your support keeps these tales alive, and we can't wait to share the next one with you.